Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Simon on the Sofa. Today it's an early morning one for me, so normally I'm filming or recording at evening times because it normally fits in with other people, but the wonderful guest I have with me today is also a free spirit. He's also, maybe he just doesn't work either, like me. Maybe we can just hang out early in the morning and have a lovely conversation. So, welcome, Lee Harris.
Hi, Simon. Lovely to be here. Hi, everybody.
So I've noticed that from some of the people that are tuning in live, if you're tuning in live today, hello and thank you. I know that there's been some lovely comments and people have been really following just following you really, Lee, and your journey and what you've been up to for a while. I've had some nice comments saying, great that you're speaking to Lee, and I've been following his sharings for a long time and his energy updates and so on. So if you don't capture this one live, then welcome to you for coming back, and thank you for coming back, because I know there's so much information out there now, and there's so many videos and so much content, and if you've chosen to come and listen to me and Lee today, then there's a real gratitude to you as co-creators of this, whatever arises in this transparent conversation. So welcome everybody. So Lee, as you know, it's just show up and see. So I always really love to just check in with you really and see where you are right this moment. I know you've already told me you're in Slovenia, but please share with the viewers where you're at and what's happening.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm on about day 4 of jet lag, so I had about 3 hours sleep last night, which is always fun. Yeah, I'm in Slovenia for the next week, and I'm at the beginning of a 6.5-week trip through 4 different countries in Europe and dotting back to England between each trip. So it's fun actually. It's kind of nice to be on the road, and this is a bit of an adventure, 6.5 weeks. So no, it's nice. I like how loose everything is feeling at the moment.
Very nice. And you say the 6.5 weeks, and is this the longest you've been in that in that chunk to be out doing your work, and maybe share a little bit about what you're up to in this 6 weeks?
Yeah, so some of it's personal and some of it's work. So it's not the longest. No, I've done this a couple of times in the last couple of years. So I made a new music album this past 12 months, 18 months actually, here in Slovenia. I spent 2 months recording it here with my co-creator of the album, Davor, and it's his house that I'm in. It's his sofa that we're borrowing for the sofa interview, Simon. And so I'm here just we've just released the album last month, so we're working on a few things around that and future music videos, and we're also rehearsing live Adventures in Sound, which is a sound series that I put out within the last 12 months of layers of voices and tone and some drumming, because we're going to do a retreat in Norway, and it will be the first time I kind of create that live. So I'm practicing with a looping machine at the moment, which is fun and interesting and challenging and all of those things. So yeah, I'm here for a week doing that, and then have some time with family in England and some time in France with family, and then I'm going to Norway for a week to host an evening event called Winter Light and a three-day retreat called Energy Mastery, which I'm really looking forward to. It's basically a chance for me to take 21 participants through 3 days of energy awareness work, which is my thing really. So I often do one-day seminars. I haven't done a full weekend in a few years, so it's going to be great.
Beautiful. You're in a nice. You've got a nice. It's lovely because I was looking at your website and there's a mix of, when I meet people that are just, I suppose you could say live in their truth, live in their bliss, following what is real for them. When you meet people of that have made that choice and have been brave enough to step into that. Because I know it's very challenging for people to really tune into what is real for them, with all the noise.
Yeah.
But it's always lovely because I love it when I see that there's a mix of play, It's like, even I know that your energy work is play, and I know that when I listen to your messages, they're coming from a very, expressing a new way of being and sharing. I always like how you share. I've only listened to a few, but I like how you share from that place of, this isn't how it is, this isn't fixed. Don't be so caught up on fixed, like I know, and all of a sudden this is how it is. But actually, everything's constantly changing and evolving, and then you're showing up from that place. And then now you're doing a music album, which I think probably, I'm just assuming this here, so tell me if I'm wrong, but that's a little bit of your play out of the work you've been doing for the last few years. Am I right or not?
Yeah, you know, and I've done music. I was doing music because I started doing energy work and channeling in 2004 publicly as a job, and I completely fell into it. Did not. And actually, Anaya Sophia, who you've also interviewed, she was the one who kind of got me into it by saying I should do readings. And so I did readings, and they just took off. And gradually, I slowly accepted, okay, I'm being called here. I was very much focused on wanting to make music my career. But I did go to this workshop, and it was with Chuck Spezzano's Psychology of Vision, and I did quite a lot of those in my mid-20s. Great stuff, all about, you know, getting into your crap, basically, and unearthing your crap, and being in a safe place where everyone was together examining it. And, you know, we're both from England, so one of the ironies of the job I do, I feel, is that I was so starved in England growing up for true emotional communication. And what I was unaware of when I was younger, like many people, I think, is that I was picking up on all of this stuff, but I didn't know that I was that sensitive and intuitive. So what I was constantly picking up on was distortion, because someone would say one thing and mean another. And then that played out in how I became distorted in my own life and personality. And then, you know, in my 20s, I did that beginning of the process of unpicking it all. And I remember Chuck at one of the Psychology of Vision workshops said something that just hit me between the eyes. And he said, if you, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, if you didn't know what you were supposed to do to have your happiest path, and you just gave it up to God, and that was the terminology he would use, or a higher power, just said, I'm here to be of service, would you be willing to do it? And it really hit me that day. I was about 24, 25, and I noticed some resistance, because I knew what I wanted to do. And then I thought, God, that's really it. And I sat with it all night, and then the next day at the workshop, he said it again, and I made that intention. And it's kind of funny to me now that 6 months later I started doing readings. Unbeknownst to me, it would take me on this, what's so far a 10.5-year journey of evolving through that field and being of service in that field. So it's interesting how where you end up. So the music's kind of, this is the most playful album though. It's like pop dance, and yeah, it's fun. I love music. It's probably, you know, for me, it's one of the most important things that kind of keeps you sane and free on earth, for me.
Yeah, yeah. And also we're talking of communication, but music, you know, I know that everything is communication to some extent, whether it be art, music, you know, channeling, reading, you know, everything, even what we're doing now. But music has a beautiful way to also channel messages. So in the music that you're now doing, is it linked to the sort of service work and the messages that you're doing and bringing through anyway? Is it all integrated from that space, or is it just like, I want to have some fun and I'm rocking with this?
It's a bit of both. So there's a consciousness in all of it, but the idea with the album was, yes, the lyrics will be conscious and our intentions behind what each song represents is conscious, but my hope is always, can you produce, and I had this with Golden World, the album I did before, can you produce an album that if someone doesn't ever listen to the lyrics, they just have a good energy movement through the music and a good experience? So, and it was nice, my collaborator, Devore, unbeknownst to me, he only told me this about 2 months after we'd started work on the album. He said that he'd got all of my MP3s and listened to all of them. So he was very integrated with my channeling work, and he didn't tell me that at all. So it was great, because then we both had a foundation in a kind of an understanding of and an experience of spirit and something bigger than the human experience we were all taught when we were kids. So that's definitely all fused, and he also works as a therapist too. So, you know, yeah, it's like, this is what two therapists, energy workers do if they get into a music studio, pretty much. But yeah, it's a bit of a bomb, a sound bomb.
Yeah, nice. But and also when you become a certain way in life, we're frequency ourselves, right? We're sound ourselves, we're vibration. So when you become a a certain way in life, then whatever you then integrate in, or create from that space has that aspect of you in it. And you was talking beautifully about this idea of, you said Chuck gave you that question, and how, you know, what would be your happiest path if you was to give yourself over to service into something grander than yourself. And I feel at the moment that is very much a message that's coming through more and more for people, in terms of, you know, how can you as an individual step into your grandest version of who you are, you know, see that you are the grand creator of your reality, and then own that, take responsibility for that place. And then from that place, it seems that, I mean, I call it, when I fell in love with myself, I fell in love with the planet, and from that place you can only serve. It's like love only serves. It can't do anything else but serve. But I got that from what you shared a moment ago, and I love how that then comes in. Like you said, it's play, it's a mix, but it has that consciousness already tapped in or weaved into its tapestry. And what's coming up for me, which I'd love, I just had this sort of voice say that there might be people come on this talk, Lee, because I have a whole wide range of different people from different places. And it might be lovely for you just to express a little bit, you know, we use the word spirit or channeling or energy, and sometimes they can be a little bit, I suppose, not ambiguous, but a little bit, you know, people don't really get what that means. Yeah. So I don't know if that feels good for you in this moment, if you felt something else arising, it might be nice just to sort of share with the viewers a bit about that.
So what happened for me was, now I look back on my late teens, I started to open up around about the age of 19, probably a little earlier, but 19 was when I started actively seeking spiritual books, spiritual experiences, and self-development work. So for me, it was always grounded in self-development. It was always, I think, the quest for more happiness and more peace, and trying to take the unhappiness I felt, or the depression, and lighten it up. Because every time I would read about that, I'd go, this is I can see this is true. This is saying that there's a way through. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but I'm going to find it. You know, something's off. And so, you know, I did all the workshops and blah, blah, blah. But interestingly, even before I got to the psychology of vision workshops, which were really key for me, because being in a room where people were emotionally expressing was like oxygen. I was like, oh my God, thank God. You know, and that's my joy now in my work, whatever form it's taking. Occasionally, especially in this field, people will ask you, what's your core message? Which I think is a really odd question, and I think it's a little bit linear and a little bit 1985, but people are still doing it, and that's fine. So you always, you know, you're kind of like, oh, well, you know, I'm not law of attraction, because I think people just want to box things. And for me, I think that's not the way of the future, but I get that you need something so that people like a sentence. So I always say I work with people on opening. And that really is the truth, because, you know, I can work with people in any area, and I have. And for me, the key is, how do we open more of what's inside us and fuse and blend that with what's outside? And I thought your explanation about the end result of that was perfect and beautiful. You get more compassionate and more in love with the world the more you find that in yourself. So what happened to me was, I was 23 years old, and I was on an underground train in London, the Tube, and I was on my way to work. I was working in fundraising at the time, and I heard a voice in my head, like literally just on the left-hand side. I was going through my thoughts. You know what it's like. You're kind of going, now I need to do this, and I must remember to do that, and blah, blah, blah. And there was probably a hell of a lot of self-judgment in there at that time as well. So downward thoughts on myself. I wish, you know, frustrations, all that stuff. And then from the left, there was just this voice that was so different, and I'd never heard it before in that way. But most importantly, I'd never heard the words. And again, I can't remember what was said, but it was the equivalent of, no, that's not how it is. Everything is going to be good. And it was kind of startling, because it wasn't the way I would ever speak to myself. So over a period of months, I would write questions and get answers from this voice, and it was completely fluent. I didn't have to meditate. I didn't have to do anything. You know, my mind, my conception of a channeler was, you needed to go to some cave in Atlantis and have someone donk you on the head, and it would all be mystical. And, you know, I had a bit of a preconception, because like most of us, I had separated spirit. You know, in church, you're taught God is up there and you're down here, and let's hope you're not an evil sinner. You know, so there was this immediate separation of the sense of us from spirit. No one had ever really sat me down and said, there's this amazing universe. We're on a planet in the middle of outer space. We're probably not the only life. How fascinating. You know, no one had ever introduced me to that concept that you could connect to all of that energetically. But this voice, which gave me a name of Zachary, they said, you know, we don't have names, but we'll give you a name because we know humans need names and like names. So you can call me Zachary. Over the next 6 to 8 months, I just asked question after question and gradually realized I was channeling. It was like, no, this is what channeling is. Still with some self-doubt because I hadn't struggled or gone through pain to have it happen. And, you know, I didn't have to sit there and meditate for an hour. It was just literally, I could just, like I can now, I can just go, and they'll speak to me. So I started to do it for friends. And after a while doing it for the open friends, it got to a point where I met Anaya. She was a Kundalini yoga teacher at the time and also doing some shamanic work. She was great, really connected with her. Helped her out one day in a cafe. And she came back to me the next day and said, God, that really helped me and her then partner. That really transformed something. You've got to do this for people. So I will cut it short by saying the rest is history, but I will reference exactly what you said earlier. Yeah, fear, self-doubt, a hell of a load of things to go through in allowing myself to do that. But it just took off like wildfire, and I think within 60 days I'd done 60 readings, and I'd just given out an email address. And people started to write from around the world because as their friends came, they'd go, you've got to go and see this guy for a reading. And it just spread. And then, you know, 2 years later, I was creating MP3s, doing public work, and was very nervous about it, to be honest. I didn't really want channeler whacked on my forehead because I knew it was going to be opening up a can of worms, and I didn't want the crap that came with it and the misperception and the judgment and the skepticism. You know, I'd lived my life trying to undo the stuff that had come at me in society as kind of an overweight kid, and, you know, all of this, the sensitivity I had. But it was the making of me because, you know, putting myself out there as a channeler really just taught me to go, well, whatever, you know, bring it. You know, so it's given me a certain level of fearlessness in my life to kind of, yeah, it was really, really powerful. And then from there, my own intuitive sense developed. So really, I channel a lot less these days, and it's not so much my focus anymore. It's not where I want to go in the future. My passion really is helping people understand what's going on for them energetically in as human terms as I possibly can, and to the best of my ability, giving them ways through that are quick and that will save them the time that perhaps you and I and prior generations weren't saved while I often say this as healers and teachers. Not a huge fan of those two terms, but again, they're terms that we use. I think you sometimes struggle through the experiment so that you can come out the other side with the end result, and you know the formula. So, you know, I often, you know, went through things the hard way in order to, I think, feel every stage of it, so that when you speak to someone about what they're going through, you have a compassion for all those stages, even while you're holding the flag of, this is where you're going to get to, I promise. Just keep walking this way. Oh, you fell down there? This is how you get up there. Oh, you tripped there? This is how you get up when you trip, you know? Yeah. Wow. There's a, yeah, thank you for that, because I think we can always with these lovely conversations, I'm just here and we can go many different ways, and it's interesting. As you're speaking, it's so funny because even though I've met so many different people, and there's always this, like you said, it's a skepticism that comes up around this. It's such a thick energy around this, and I often wonder why that's there. Meaning that, you know, we clearly are, for whatever reason, suppressed as human beings. You know, we clearly are gone through the process of whatever. I mean, you know, some call it domestication, some call it suppression, numbed down. You know, we've been withheld information, knowledge. You know, you go back hundreds of years, and witches and people, you know, used to get killed on the stake, and, you know, and whatever, anybody else that was a prophet or anybody talking about certain
you could call it mystical, but it's beyond mystical, you know, revelations or things that just are not the norm, then obviously they're ostracized and put out and so on. So it seems like we were born into a time when, yeah, ultimately we were just born into I call it a foundation of fear, but not the fear that I now call a fear is a friend and leads you to love, but the fear where, you know, we shouldn't say that, we shouldn't do this, we can't talk about any of this stuff, you know, let alone channeling and listening to other voices. You know, you might get either straight-jacketed up or whatever. So as you're talking, there's still that sense of, oh, you know, you're hearing a voice. And I've always had this conversation with many people who said, well, actually, sometimes are you hearing a voice, or are you tapping into your true, authentic self, your power? You know, is that what intuition really is? And that, yeah, we might say, I heard this voice coming over the hill, or this person give it to me, or that give it to me. And sometimes I've felt, and I'd love to hear from somebody who's, you know, expressively experienced this for a number of years. I've often felt that sometimes people are giving their power away, but that's what it's felt like, to some other force again, to some other being, to some other character. And I think and I know that that's where people get this sort of dance between, is this real or is it not real? So I don't know, what comes up for you when I even sort of share that? It'd be lovely to hear your personal opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, because I wasn't like a channeling fan. So if you'd have put me into the music industry, I'd have been like, oh, you know, it would have been, because it was a dream and I wanted it. But there was no way on earth I ever thought I would be a channeler, or even knew that there was like a whole channeling field. And so when I became, you know, a little bit known in that field, I suddenly discovered this field and this, and I was reticent and I was shocked at what I saw in there. What I saw in there was a lot of okay, I'm trying to think how to encapsulate this briefly. I saw everything. So I saw some channelers that I would see that I could understand why channelers had the reputation they had. Because I'd see some who were, you know, by most people's standards, a little bit out there. And I'd see others and I'd go, how is that helping anybody? You know, I think, well, I could see that people were believing it, but I couldn't see how the information was transposing to their own personal empowerment. Sometimes I could see, so there were things that I felt were distorted. And then you've got the attack side. You mentioned witches. That's why it exists. You know, these energies die slowly. And the witch hunt time was a time when people were being murdered because of their speaking and voicing that they were in contact with spirit. So that does not go away, even though, you know, we could be, you know, it's a few centuries ago. And now I would say that the two comments that I see leveled at channelers the most is charlatan and money grabbing. Well, number one, you know, I know very few rich channelers, and most of the people I know who are doing it, myself included, it's like any money that we make for the services that I give out just pays for people's wages in the team, and we just keep growing it, and we keep going, okay, how can we, what do we do over here that's, so to me the money argument really is naive, because I think we're having a money argument on the planet in every direction, and usually the people making the money argument are bitter or angry about money in general, and wrongly they're attacking people who are down here on tribe level, when really you go, well, okay, we've got this 99 and 1%. So I think that's just money anger. The charlatan thing to me is kind of funny, because honestly, I think you've got to be really stupid to go out there as a channeler, as a charlatan, because you're going to get a lot of attack. And I know a lot of intelligent people who are channelers, and believe me, you know, it's not worth the hassle. So I think what happens is when people see a certain popularity going around something, they want to attack the person who is being followed, they perceive. To go back to another point, because you're right, you can go everywhere with this, but you make a really good point. That was the other thing I didn't like in the channeling world. I saw a lot of people sitting there and being inspired by channeling, getting that kind of post-workshop float. They float off into their lives, but either don't then apply it or don't know how to apply it, which was why at a certain point I started stepping into the middle. And I thought, I'm not just going to be a channeler, because I see the people who are only channelers out there, And I don't see a huge amount of transformation happening in the majority of their audience. I see 20 or 30% of the audience who know how to activate things and take it through their body and take channeling as part of a balanced diet. They're kind of, you know, integrating things, but the rest, it felt like the new religion. And they're just turning up on a Sunday and getting the next inspirational dose and then going home. And I was like, no, this, I couldn't tolerate being in that myself. I couldn't have stood there and done that for 10 years. It wouldn't have felt real to me. So I started stepping in the middle and doing things like my monthly energy forecast videos where, you know, I've got a channel perspective, but you were asking what's the difference. There are differences. So if I work with somebody in a 1 hour session, for about the first 30 minutes, I tell them what I'm getting about them before they ask me any questions. And then for the second 30 minutes, we go backwards and forwards on their questions. And the experience for me is kind of like opening up a big circle. So if I was with you, I'd have kind of you in front of me, even though we're on Skype. I kind of have your energy field here in front of me. And it's actually several voices at once in me that are talking. So sometimes I'm hearing things from you. Sometimes I'm sensing things empathically through the feelings in my body and how my own nervous system responds to your nervous system, and that gives me information. Occasionally I'll hear something from them, and a lot of the time it's my own intuitive voice which kind of comes a bit more horizontally. Now when I channel and I'm speaking to them from inside myself, I hear them up here, but the big acid test for me and the difference is when I channel publicly, I get very hot, like in my body. My temperature rises, which is why I could never do it for too long. You know, I try to never do more than an hour, and I do less these days than I used to. My temperature rises, and you slightly lose consciousness in a way. So even though I'm not a trance channeler, it's just different. It's a very different feeling in my body, and I know it's not just me because the information that comes through is not stuff that I would glean. But when I'll hear it back afterwards, I go, oh right, yeah, it connects dots in ways I hadn't seen. But more importantly, my felt experience, it's almost like half my body is there and half my body is overlaid into to emit this thing. So that's, I think hopefully I've covered a few of your points there, but you're right, it's hard to bring these things down because it is also endlessly multidimensional that, you know, you try and just do the best you can with keeping these things contained.
Yeah, no, totally. And I know we only have a short time together, so I appreciate your distilling to the best of your ability in the present moment. And it's this other thing I think that's what's coming up, which I'd love. And again, when I get somebody who's doing it, I like to really explore, also contemplating what maybe the audience is thinking as well sometimes. So when we say them, you know, we're getting a message from them, or we're getting channeled from another spirit. Let's call it spirit, being, energy. Because you're also called Lee Harris Energy, right? So, yeah. Like, where is that? Is that spirit? Because what we do as a mental mind, we conceptualize it and we try to go, okay, well that means that he's talking to somebody that looks like Simon with a blue jumper and a scarf on, and he's hanging out on a planet over in, you know, up in the clouds and so on. And now we're walking around and they're only communicating to Lee, and it's Lee's the special one. And actually, yeah, they're messages that they want to save the world, but they can't do anything themselves. They keep trying to help other people that are just peasants on the ground. You know, whatever. I'm just totally playing the story, you know. So where are we tapping into from that? Is it a collective? Is it like the collective consciousness? Is it the intelligence that is beyond, you know, how we as individual selves get lost of touching in with? Can we talk a little bit to that, just for a couple of minutes, because I want to talk to you about something juicy that's coming up as well.
The simplest way I could define it from my experience of receiving from it in my own personal life and using it for others is higher perspective. Right. So we do love defining things, and we were told there is a God and he's a full stop end point. Right. So yeah, and people do go, are you channeling an angel? Are you channeling an alien? They've always said we're travelers, because, you know, I've asked those questions. I've gone, what are you exactly like? Do you? And they go, we're travelers and we're a voice of galactic source. So they say, think of us as a library that extends wider into source. So they say we're an initial collective of 88, but then we just keep multiplying. And my experience with my direct experiences of spirit, and the more I've grown, is it's endless. So even if we were to define it now, we're only defining it to give ourselves a ceiling that we can then feel comfortable with. So we go, oh, well, it's an angel. So I'm comfortable with that, so I'll receive messages from this angel. And at a certain point, hopefully, the angel will become benign to you, and what it has given you will have taken you wider. So the other thing I would say is I definitely am always an advocate for channeling is way more normal than you think it is, and that's my experience. So if I'm having that experience and I'm one of all of us, you know, that's an attest to that. And the other thing, no, it's gone.
Well, it's fine because yeah. I can talk to that anyway, because it's lovely to hear you say, as many people that have said that are doing the work that you're doing, is that actually everyone has the capacity. It's like whether it be telepathy, intuition, you know, connecting to spirit, or whatever the thing is, it's more about that each of us has the power and the ability to do what anybody else has on this planet. Yeah, or that's been my way of looking at it, because often we, like you said, we need to box it in, and the mind from a sort of mental perspective, it gets fried, really, doesn't it? You know, you're going into, like, you know, even if you think about infinite, you know, people talk about infinite, or it's infinite, it's just infinite, but really to grasp infinite, to grasp that, you know, within the speck that we are, you know, the whole universe resides there. You know, within the micro is the macro. I mean, like, we talk about these words at the moment. It's a beautiful, you know, beautiful words and sort of pointers to break you out of the limited, scarce self, really, isn't it? It's more about that you are a vast intergalactic. I haven't used this word before, but I like galactic. I like intergalactic.
Yeah, no, totally.
You're an intergalactic being, you know.
And can I just jump in with one thing? Because I think you're totally right. We do all have the potential to be everything, but I have come to understand that there are lanes for certain. You know, there are certain lanes for us. And I think the importance of remembering you can do everything is it makes you be unlimited in the way you explore yourself. But for example, we've all got these, I always say these are like gravity suits, these human bodies. So a channel is just talking from the vastness of source. It's not having to go through the density of this human body in the energy field of this planet with all of its density and light. For example, you know, one of your gifts is this. So yes, everyone has the capacity to do Simon on the sofa, but something about you, your desire, your abilities, your communication skill, your heart, you had a drive to do it, you're doing it. And then if we look at you physically, you know, you've got very striking blue eyes, which are great, but even they will have an effect on me. So there are certain things that are defined about your physicality and the way you use your energy on Earth that are designed to have an effect in a certain way on everyone else. And that's why the collective's so important. You know, and we've been so individualized. It's like, well, I'm this and I'm that. And, you know, it's kind of where the ego, unfortunately, is costing us as a world, because we're at a time where we've got to come together as a world. You know, we can keep fighting each other in countries and let the whole planet get destroyed, or we can start to go, ooh, we're all in this together, and we're doing quite a lot of damage to Mother Nature right now, and she's only going to tolerate us doing that for so long before she kicks us off in order to preserve the planet. So depending on your philosophy or your attitude about that, you can either go, oh well, we're just here experiencing the end of the world, or you can go, maybe we're here to try and be the bridge generation, and I will try and find what it is that can be my passion in that, or what can I offer. And I think within that, I'd like to just caveat and be as kind to yourself as you can, because I see so many people beating themselves up and taking on responsibility for the whole planet. And when you do that, you suffer. But if you just go, okay, I'm a human being, and today for 4 hours I managed to do this, and now I need to go and lie down, you know, and gradually the more you balance yourself with that, and we weren't taught to be kind to ourselves. It's one of the hardest things I've had to learn, and now I teach it to others. It's like, why we have to go, it's all right, you can go and lie down if you're tired, and if you operate that way, you will find a natural flow and rhythm that's outside what you were trained into and true to who you're here to be. It's a process and a practice like everything.
Yeah, but that's, you know, but I'm glad that came up, and I'm glad that you clarified that as well, because, and this leads us in, as it would perfectly anyway, of course, you know, as if it was going to go anywhere else. As something that really sparked me with one of your talks was the one we did early 2014, which was Emergence. Yeah, I posted that as your trailer. And then obviously you did. I know you just did a recent energy update for December.
Yes, yes, I did.
Yeah, and what I really loved about Emergence is that at the moment I know that there's so many people in between the two worlds. Yeah, whatever, call them old paradigm, new paradigm, just for the conversation, just for people listening. So you've got this world of, like you just described a little bit, really, this world of separation. I'm a single being. I'm not involved. I'm just going along with the masses, and I'm not really contributing to the evolution of humanity, for example. And then you've got this other aspect of, like, wow, I am a co-creator of reality, and if we come together in unity and community and so on, we can really, enhance and support the planet. But then also the awareness that within that we're sort of humbled by the I suppose the insignificance of us and the significance of us. I'm just going to play with that, but I'm not going to go with paradox, because a lot of times people say paradox. I'm not even going to play with paradox. I'm going to say it's not about paradox. It's about who we are and what's actually coming into our awareness, which is mind blowing. For me, I grew up on a council estate, was a criminal, took a load of drugs, and was just thought I was going to be a famous actor, and now it's like, boom, the world opened up, awareness, love, and the connection to all that is, and I'm like, what's going on? So and I've been dancing with that for 7 years and integrating that, and this is my contribution to the continuation of our species. But what you said, lovely, and I'd love us just to talk about this for however long we need to, is this emergence of a new human being. And also you said something lovely, which is that we're at a time now in your December update where we're in that blank canvas. We are in that space where there's no set way that anything is. If we ask who we really are and what we really are and what we want to contribute. So just talk from there, Lee. I don't know what comes up for you, but.
And I just want to quickly say about how cool about your story that you just shared, because you're such a shining example of a life transformed and changed, which is what we all need to see. And number two, thank God you're not a famous actor, because instead you get to do the same thing here with a lot more freedom and openness, right? But isn't it interesting that the child in you was kind of right, because you are out there on people's screens, just in a different way. Right. I always find that interesting, how the seeds of truth, children often know where they're going, even if the form is slightly different. So really good point you made about the old paradigm, new paradigm. The best way to explain it to people who those terms are maybe a bit technical for is, the old life was you get a job and you get married and you pay off your mortgage, and then maybe you'll have kids, and then you can save up for their wedding, and then you can retire at 65, and it's kind of like this, and it was told to you what you were supposed to do. And I remember being a kid, and if you were like 50 or over, you were kind of supposed to wear brown or grey and sit in the corner. It was there was such like boxes for who someone's identity could be at different places in their life. And that's what's now busting open. But the difficulty with that is it scares everybody. It's not just this glorious, oh, I'm going to become an entrepreneur in this thing that's going to help the world. The journey into that will push you through all your stuff because you're going off map. But I think more of the world are recognizing that the actual system that we're all living in is imploding, isn't sustainable, and is destroying the earth. So therefore, as we each individually break out, we start to see this new creation. So energetically, right now, people who are doing really well in themselves and have got to a place where they've figured out who they are more than they ever have. They know what bothers them. They know what works for them. They've done some work on boundaries in their life so that they're no longer tolerating bad or difficult behavior that brings them down. They have a sense each day of understanding they need to maintain their own equilibrium to be best in the world. Those people right now are being called to be braver than ever before. Not kamikaze. It's not like put all your life savings into a ranch in Santa Fe because you've had some vision that that's where the aliens are going to land and you'll be able to be the person. I mean, great if you want to do it, but I always say don't put all your life savings in, because because that can happen when you start to open up. Your visions become very seductive and very big. But I've learned that visions are always best put on a board and assessed with a bit of logic afterwards and gone, now is that possible, or is that going to be... Sometimes it's great to dive in and crash, because that's what you need, but not multiple times. Those people are really, if they can be brave right now and push their edges a bit, they're going to be popping into just more intimacy, more connection, more feeling alive than ever before, and less attachment to the form of how things are supposed to look. Conversely, we've still got a lot of people going through the birth canal, which is in anguish, frustration, kicking back against their job, in unhappy places in their relationship. Transformation and awakening is just like, it's a tunnel. We all go through it in slightly different specific ways, but there are themes. And you know, you see a lot of people occasionally commenting after one of my videos or Facebook or to other people's thing, I'm just so sick of this, when does it end? You know, and there's you know, that's a good statement. They're being authentic. The question for them to ask themselves is, okay, how many of my own patterns have I changed in the last 2 years that this has been consistent? Or how much should I be kinder to myself and go, wow, well, this year I got divorced, my dad died, I lost my job, one of my children was sick for 6 months. So yeah, if I look at that logically, I'm probably not going to be in a great state right now. So my focus has to be to work towards what needs to change in my state. And then you have to go around the whole spectrum. What are you putting in your body? You know, what are you feeding yourself that's not good for you or toxic or bringing you down? Have you got any addictions that you're leaning on that will be kamikaze swinging you? So, you know, you might feel great after 4 glasses of wine that night, but the next day it's going to deplete your mood. And that's the thing with awakening. You get more sensitive to everything, so you have to get more observant and notice what's going on for you. And that's tricky for a lot of people who have been focused on everyone else for so long, because there's a perfect balance point. If you look after yourself, you become more generous to others. But when you've only been serving others, you know, you're kind of, I won't use the rude word, but, you know, because I don't know what age the audiences are, but yeah, you're kind of, you know, screwed a bit, really, for a while, because you're just held hostage to everyone else. And I think that's very much something we were never taught when we were kids, and so you have to learn it.
Yeah, lovely, lovely, lovely again. Just, yeah, just like, I like the, I know you said at the beginning, before we even went live, you were just saying about how that's, that we'd love to have teleportation, and it's about time it's here. But you also
I really want a teleporter. It would just make it all so much easier.
Yeah, just the teleporter. But you also said that that's because also you're grounded here. You know, you're grounded here on planet Earth, and I think that I like, again, there's certainly, I'm speaking to the people viewing, you know, viewing this video, and again, honouring you for listening in and being with us as we share. So we've got a number of live viewers with us today. So just hello to you guys, and I hope that you're still with us. So you're obviously enjoying the conversation, which is great.
Or there's nothing else on.
Yeah, we're just like the crap TV that they, you know, they've got on in the afternoon. So yeah, I just want to say to the people viewing, and even if you might know Lee, and you might even be already on that journey of transformation, but for those that are just beginning, at whatever stage you're at, I love how Lee just really broke that down, and it is about day to day, you know, it's taking charge of yourself. I mean, over this last 7 years, you know, I've been up and down and all over the place to even find some real harmony and peace within my own way of expressing myself and the work that I want to do. Well, not even work, I call it play, but I've noticed at times I was, you know, so broke, it was like depressing. I've, like, you know, relationships have been challenging, and letting go of the dream of even the dream of being an actor and being famous, and that took years to let go. I spent 15 years striving to be a professional actor, become a professional actor at the point when I had I'm just going to use the word, I'm going to use shift in perception, and had the big opening through or realization that the lie that I was upholding within myself was just also being emanated out there, and that I was following, you know, the foundation of fear, the lie, the scarcity, the lack. So I moved into this place of awareness and a love and unconditional giving, and just this exchange with the universe that took place, which was overwhelming. And trust me, I'd taken, as I said already, I'd taken drugs, but it was a case that now I was experiencing pure ecstasy, you could say, like a real love of life, an overwhelming filling up of just joy, and not really knowing what the hell to do with that, you know, and then bringing that in to integrate in new ways, and having to go almost like back. You could say it's not this, but it feels like that you're going back to like zero. I've got to start again, and you know, it's a hard challenge. So what Lee just described there about food, you know, if you've got struggles and just day-to-day stuff, then you can't be thinking maybe of what's going on a universal flow of evolution. However, if you take responsibility in charge of your sick parent or your child or whatever, you take care of them very consciously and from a place of love, you are actually, from a morphogenesis perspective, you are actually contributing to the evolution of humanity. So I just wanted to throw that in there, and whatever comes up to you, Lee, from what I just shared, please drop, you know, continue.
That's great. And what you said about the 7-year journey that you've had is absolutely correct. And the misperception that we all have. You know, I remember seeing Gangaji videos back with Anaya. She introduced me to Gangaji back in 2004. And I remember thinking, oh, you know, how great. And even then, I still thought that people who could emanate that level of peace, I thought, oh, she's not feeling anything. You know, I thought, great, she's got beyond. And of course she hasn't. You know, it's like you know, and I'm a good energy reader of people. My job is to be able to sense what's going on inside somebody and articulate it pretty quickly. I've met some of the top teachers in the world backstage, and that was a great liberator for me, because even if they're brilliant on the stage, I meet them backstage and I'm like, oh, okay, you're dealing with that, or you're quite angry, or, you know, so it wasn't about judging those people, it was about freeing myself from years of believing that there's some place that you should be that everyone else is that you can't get to. And I think that's one of the biggest myths in self-development and spirituality. The truth of it is it's messy, it's uncomfortable, and it's raw. And like the more you go into it, but then, you know, people will go, well, then why should I do it? Because trust me, it's so worth it, because exactly what you said, it's like you just get more consistently happy. You just get more consistently able to feel like, I relate to what you said about drugs. Marijuana, when I was introduced to that, I was like, oh my God, this is a wonder, you know, because it was like Disneyland. And then, of course, there comes a point when marijuana starts being drudge, and the whole point is that you go, oh, I see, marijuana showed me something that was possible, and then when you let go of that substance, you start to integrate it in your own life. So that's the whole point, and I do think we've been so shielded from our true feelings by the way we were trained that we start to get afraid and defensive when they start to come up, which is why it's so good to work with a therapist or a teacher or a mentor or a guide. We all need help, and I've certainly used a lot in my life, and that's why I enjoy being someone who is in that role to people now, because we all need lots of different people to help us get there, because it is uncomfortable when you first purge it all out, but once you've purged it, it's quite amazing the space you discover inside.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. And it's also everyone. Yeah, I always say that. Somebody said to me once. They said to me, "Oh, you know, who are your teachers? Have you had any teachers and so on?" And I said, you know what? The first thing that arose from me in that moment, I said, you know what? Everyone is my teacher.
Absolutely.
I know that might sound cliche to make people might go, yeah, everyone says that now. No, but I mean, I have, like, the people that have supported me along the way, Lee. It's just been, I mean, for example, and if they're even watching this video, you know, when I arrived to Malta, you know, I was with my past girlfriend at the time. She pretty much brought me out of London to Malta. Then when I was in Malta, like, the amount of people that would, like, just be there and help me, like loan me their car, allow me to stay in their house at a reduced rate, you know, loan me their massage couch, and it's just like this constant flow of giving that I was receiving and support. And you know when you're on the path, because you know it's the person down the street that smiles at you. You know, this is the whole thing about this gift of a smile, where you or somebody sends you, the people that send me sometimes a small comment. Or they might say, oh, I watched this video and it really, like, and I don't get that all the time. And then when you get it, you're like, oh my God, if that's just done that for that person,
Yeah.
well, this is the path, you know. I must be. It's almost like a little beacon of light, you know, that like goes, hey, it's this way, keep going, you know. It's like navigating you.
And that's true, because all of those things, I remember, like, I go back even to 2007, if I would receive a comment about what my work had done for somebody, while on the one hand I was always pleased, I was busy, and I was, you know, it's like I was working to produce more at the time. And now, how those things touch me and impact me, and how I understand, I'm like, oh, that's great. You know, I think the more you go through this process, the more you do see that everyone's your teacher, because the more open you become, the more all of that is possible. I've just lost your video, Simon. I don't know if you're still there.
What about now?
You're back. Cool. And the other thing I was going to say about the giving thing, that's really key.
That 1 minute, because I know you're back. Wait there.
Okay.
Right there. We had a little glitch. Engines were coming in. Wow.
Okay.
Carry on.
Great. The bit you said about giving is really important, because I've sometimes at seminars had people in the audience, very occasionally, but you'll get someone who will literally kind of do this. Well, I hear about everyone else who's like going around and getting given things, and I'm not being given anything, and I don't know why it's working for everyone else and not me. You know, and I then gently have to introduce them to their posture and their energy, which can be difficult if someone's got that much in them. You have to do it very carefully, and it's going to be a shock. You know, you can't just go, well, look at your posture and look at the way you're holding yourself, and do you not understand that? So for you, because you're giving out and kind of also in that state of openness, I've definitely seen that the more open I become and the more vulnerable I become in the world with other people, the more I'm willing to connect, the more those connections are there. But it's a little bit like layers of a hotel. You know, you just keep moving up the floors, and on the 8th floor there are a lot of giving people, because you've just learned to kind of change. So I think that's the joy of evolution and transformation. It's always something new. Like, you know, the more you keep transforming, the more the world around you transforms as an experience.
I got tingles.
Yeah.
I love it when I get tingles, because that sort of acknowledges and taps me in. I always love when a fly comes around as well.
I know, you're very popular today.
I know that my equilibrium is challenged. If I'm zen, I can love the fly. If not, I'm like, what?
You had one right at the beginning too.
Yeah, did I have one? They're hanging out, because at the moment they're dying, bless them, so they have to get warmth in the house.
Okay.
But no, I just want to say to that, when I get the tingles, it's almost like another monitor. I mean, this whole conversation's been beautiful and in alignment to a lot that I'm very happy that we created, and it's in alignment to a lot of what's happening right now, personally, and for people that I'm meeting along the way. And what it does for me, as you were saying, that is that I've started doing an event, as you know, and it's all about gift it forward and the gift economy. And I'm glad we're mentioning this now, because the gift economy is becoming something that's very a new way of people exchanging and coming together. And, you know, and again, it's a new model, and not many people are aware of it, and it's challenging, etc., etc. However, this idea of gifting it forward, when we truly are in a place of love, and a lot of people talk about love or unconditional love, but unconditional, what does unconditional really mean? When we're truly in a place of unconditionally giving, where we are giving purely from a place of wanting to give, giving what we can give, whatever that might be, and that when that comes from that unconditional place, there is actually in that moment, the receiving is 1,000 times abundantly received. It's like the giving and receiving they're not separate, they're so interconnected. Unconditional giving and unconditional receiving happen simultaneously. And when you experience that, you know that then you're tapping into a universal law where the giving, if everybody gave from that place, the chain could never get broken. But what often happens, the reason why the chain gets broken and why we find ourselves in lack and scarcity mentality and competition and comparing and more for me is less for you, etc., etc., etc. We're actually, all we're doing is we're actually highlighting our fear that we think there's not enough, and not enough for ourselves, not enough for the world, not enough to go around. And for me, Lee, that's what's really started to move through me and the people I co-create with, and what we're doing at the moment, is that it's so rich when somebody receives from that place and knows that it's not coming with any agenda, any idea that I want something back, no outcome. It's not outcome driven. It's just, here I am, and this is what I can give, you know.
That's really interesting. A random thing comes in for me, which is I've just spent some time in LA a couple of times in the last few months, and you know, lot for it. Love the climate, love the beaches. There's some beautiful people that I've met in LA, but someone said to me, they said, LA is very much the place of what can you do for me? And I remember thinking, oh, that's odd, but okay. And it's funny because I saw that syndrome moving through LA. Like, you know, you'd meet people and you could see they were sizing you up. So it didn't bother me. I was just fascinated. I was like, because, you know, culture begets culture. So it's like if that's the cultural template in a place, it's going to be very hard for that to be transformed from the inside until enough people do it. So that's what you're talking about. It's like the amount of people now looking at different ways of being and more holistic ways of being without the old scarcity competition templates. You've got to be really vigilant as well, because, you know, you'll see movies that are all about conflict. And it's all about, you know, you'll see, and they can be good movies too, you can be enjoying it, but then there's this, now he's down, and now he's beaten them, and it's still that, you know, it's keeping that alive in our psyches and in our emotional bodies. So, yeah, that's where awareness about everything that you're on the receiving end of becomes really key. That one of the things that came through one of the channels once, that kind of said awareness is everything, and for me, that's been true. It might not be true for everybody, but for me, the more aware I become of everything going on around me and inside me and how that relationship forms, the more I'm able to change things and alter things in myself and with others if I'm working with others on their awareness. And I've seen how that's the great transformer. But you've got to see it, you've got to feel it, and you've got to, like you guys are, dive into it and go, okay, we're going to do the gift economy and we're going to behave like this. And giving is the best, I think. You know, you know, giving is far more fulfilling than receiving. However, we're often imbalanced around receiving, a lot of us who walk this path. And I think a lot of people in the world. So receiving has to be kind of, you have to check that you're filling yourself up enough if you're a natural giver. And that's where the self-love piece comes in for natural givers. It's like, okay, the world might not be giving to you in the way that you want it to, but don't make that the problem. Just recognize half a day a week you should be going off by yourself to a park listening to music, because you just need that time to come back to you. And then when you get that imbalance, the giving and receiving flow ups around you. It's amazing, isn't it, how you alter something inside and then the outside world will mirror it. It really is true.
Yeah, and isn't that a great sign of the power and potency of us as alchemists, you know, as beings like you? And I know you said maybe the receiving's not as good, but I think as you brought it back, I would sort of say to that or speak to that and say, well, no, I think the receiving and the giving again is simultaneously just as abundant as each other when it's coming from that place of harmony, alignment, because there's a wonderful guy called Mark Silver. If anybody, you know, for people listening, check him out. He's about conscious business and bringing love into your business and so on. And he talked about asking before you hit zero. And what he did is he spoke about how our default state is giving, right? We're you know, if you think about it, think about this universe. Well, I don't need to say this to you, Lee, but I know you're thinking about this all the time. But this universe is constantly giving, right? With oxygen, our body, our internal organs. I mean, everything about us is just a gift, you know? The sun shines, the wind, the clouds, and nature, everything is so giving. You couldn't give back for your life, even if you tried. You know, there's no amount of money that could ever give back for the life that you have. That's the way that I interpret this gift of life that I am experiencing. So within that, he was talking about that your default state is giving. And what often happens when we don't receive or we don't ask for help is we also block that natural desire in people to want to give. So when we don't receive, you know, because we find it hard to receive sometimes because we think we're not worthy, or, oh, I'm not good enough, etc., 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 is that we also block again this cycle of wanting to, the universal cycle of giving and receiving, because somebody wants to give and we say, oh no, or we're not worthy, or no, I don't want, or you don't even ask that person who also at their natural state wants to help. Does that make sense to me? We're blocking that natural chain.
Think about like when someone offers to pay for dinner. Do you just go, oh, thank you? Or do you, like, you know, fight them? And I've definitely like fought people in the past, and kind of programming from parents to, oh no, you can't do that, that's not appropriate, you know, and things like that. It's like if someone wants to give something to you, just allow them to. And it's funny you say that, because in the last 4 or 5 months I've been consciously asking for help. In my personal life and with the business side of things, because keeping the business side of things alive is tricky. It's, you know, it's an ocean, and you're constantly trying to balance it and make sure that everything is working. And so in both those areas I've been asking for help more, and it's been amazing. And I highly recommend to everyone watching a brilliant book by Amanda Palmer, who I love. She's she's a rock star, and she did this great TED talk, and it's called The Art of Asking, and the book came out about a month or so ago. I've got a signed copy, which thrilled me because I love her, and it's an amazing book. If you have any issues with receiving, go and get Amanda Palmer's book, The Art of Asking, because it's pretty radical, and the way she's lived her life is pretty radical. And so she talks about living radically and what she's gone through to get there. But it's a very future book. That's what I feel about it.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you for that, because she did the TED talk. But what she did is she went, her fans paid for her next album, didn't they, for a crowdfunding campaign? Because because the music,
the biggest ever Kickstarter campaign at like $1.2 million, and rather brilliantly, she also got a load of shit for that, which wasn't justified. And she talks about that in the book. So she's completely played with that paradigm of attack, asking, receiving. That's why I love the book. It's so rounded. It's not just ask and this is what will happen. She really lays it open, and she's had an amazing life. She used to be a statue in the street and give out flowers when people gave her a donation. So she really knows what it's like to be on the street doing that. So it's fascinating to track the same theme of her life through her evolution of her career. So you really come away and understand something, and I just love her. I think she's great.
Yeah, amazing. And do you have contact to her? Because I actually wanted to get her on the sofa.
I don't. No, I don't have direct contact to her, but you know, she's pretty open, so you never know. You could. She's very active on her Facebook page, and she does read, I think, most of the comments, because she'll often reply. So go for it. Practice the art of asking.
Ask and asking. Thank you. And if anybody out there knows her, then I'm asking, send her, you know.
Totally.
And you're welcome to have a beautiful conversation on the sofa.
Give her a kiss from me if you do know her as well.
There you go. She's going to sit on the sofa and she's going to get a kiss. I mean, come on.
There you go. There you go. I mean, really.
Lee, thank you. You know, thank you so much. I'm mindful of the time for us both, and I'm also, you know, I know we sort of keep these talks sometimes around an hour, because I like people to really enjoy them. And I don't know, I just like to leave the space open for you now. I don't know what's coming up for you. Time's gone, and maybe another time I was going to say you've sort of felt my energies and feeded back a little bit about my energy today. Anyway, I was going to say to you, one time maybe you could do a little, maybe a reading and let people experience that, for example.
I'd love to do that with you. That'd be great. And this has been lovely. I think you're lovely, and this has been a really nice, you know what I mean? It's nice when you can just have it's not work, you know what I mean? We're having a conversation, and I think that's the most potent for all of us. I love witnessing other people's conversations and things. So, no, I think what you're doing is fab.
Wonderful. So with that, is there maybe you've shared so much, this is wonderful, but is there maybe one line that you'd like to share to the viewers watching? And obviously, just so everyone knows you're listening, is underneath these videos there's always links to Lee's website, his work, what he's doing, the books he's putting out there, and so on. So everything's on his website from that place. But yeah, is there anything that you'd like to share to anyone viewing who's coming to the end of 2014, and 2015 is about to arise. And yeah, just what comes up for you, Lee, just to sort of close the talk?
Well, you know, I think the thing I see a lot that really blocks progress is people's opinions and believing that they're right about what's wrong with the world or how the world needs to change. And you often see, it's something I've spoken about a lot, you'll see a lot of people's own unprocessed anger or judgment at what they're seeing going on in the world become the energy they're running through their causes. And that's a real problem for us, because those energies come from the old paradigm that has created this planet of war and division. So for us to go beyond war and division and more into unity, we've got to liberate all of those energies. So I think I'm probably, with your audience, probably that isn't happening so much, but I know what it's like when you're looking out there for answers as to how do we transform this world, how do we transform ourselves. You get very influenced by everything that you see, and there was certainly a time in my life, maybe 3-4 years ago, when I would see someone going, well, until humans, da-da-da-da-da, we're all da-da-da-da. And I'd read it, and I wouldn't completely agree with it or believe it, but, you know, I would look at it and go, well, is this, you know, because I tend to examine everything that I see. And the thing that I just really want to bring us back to is, it is true that the more you can become aware of your own crap and amplify your own light and love, those are the only energies that I believe we can really bring to what's going on, because those are where the most enlightened thoughts, choices, and actions come from. So you often see people criticizing self-love and going, oh, selfish and da-da-da-da. No, selfish behavior comes from people who really aren't in love, and I can talk to you about that for half an hour. I can give you the examples if you want. And I see people getting scared by angry or opinionated people. And just think about that in your own life. Who was it in your childhood that was angry or opinionated that you learned to shrink back from? And my message, I guess, is that we can push those dents out. We get dented. I've been dented so many times in ways that I thought I'd never recover from. And what I've learned is, provided you bring some awareness to it, you push that dent out. And that's what taking your power is. It's not taking power over others. It's just being able to stand in your space. It doesn't happen overnight. If you're sitting there feeling miserable hearing what I'm saying because it feels like it's so far away, the very fact you're feeling miserable about it tells you that you believe me, which means if you believe me, it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what you feel to be true inside yourself. And the depression comes from the feeling you've got where you go, oh, I'm so far away from that truth. But the key word in that is truth. So you know it's possible. So just keep holding on to it. And I know a lot of people are tired and stressed out and fried by what's going on. The first thing you've got to do when you're in that state is learn to look after yourself and go, okay, I want transformation. It might be 6 months away if I focus for the next 6 months on just calming my life down, taking space. I think you do get a lot of striving for things to happen quickly. And if you can just focus on today, what's the best? What do I need today? Okay, I'm stressed, so today I probably just need to be quiet. Okay, and you'll go through the challenge of that because you'll think, well, what about being on Facebook or doing those emails or the phone calls I'm going to get? Turn the phone off. No one's going to die. They can wait. And even if you've got kids, take 20 minutes to yourself. Put them in front of a TV show if you're stressed out and just go, I'm just going to sit in the bedroom for 20 minutes quietly. It's all about learning what you need and what's possible within your life to increase that frequency. I think that's pretty much it, Simon.
Awesome. Awesome. I don't forget even the one sentence. That's beautifully said.
And sorry. that's a hazard of being me. Sorry.
No. Listen, don't apologise by no means. I don't care if this conversation goes on for 2 hours. Personally, it's like, for me, this is a very important time. So I'm not trying to. I actually only keep these conversations at an hour purely based on people saying sometimes, oh, sure. An hour. If you do 2 hour conversations, some of my conversations are 2 hours. Sometimes the real richness of a conversation comes through the dance of being with somebody for some time, you know. And for me, you said something lovely. You enjoyed the exchange of a conversation, and my message always is to people to have these conversations. And whether you're Buddhist or not, the Dalai Lama, if you respect him or not, you know, mentioned that this is the century of dialogue. And if we don't come together and have these dialogues and give each other the respect to listen and allow them to speak, and the honouring in our gift of ears and our eyes, you know, if we don't come together first, like Lee's saying, fill up our cup and come together, and then first know what we need to get ourselves into a shifted frequency, then we're no use anyway. You know, we're just no use to anyone, to ourselves first and foremost, and then our communities, our towns, our cities, our planet. So and yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you to the live viewers. Sometimes I don't want conversations to end. I'm like, oh yeah, we don't want this one. I know, because you know what? Because as we were speaking, there's so much we can talk about. But I'll tell you what we do in the new year. Maybe, I don't know, midway through the new year or springtime, we could maybe come together, Lee. You could do a little energy reading. We could talk about who we are as we're springing into summer.
I'd love that. And this has been great. Thank you, and thank you everyone who tuned in live, being part of this energy.
Yeah, big time. So yeah, love to everybody out there. You're a magnificent being. I'm buzzing. I've got so much from Lee today, just to remind me of little moments and little things that I can integrate into my life. Like I might actually take 20 minutes sometimes when I don't need to, and I'm thinking I need to be on Facebook to tell more people about Simon on the Sofa, you know? I might think I need to just take 20 minutes and just chill and add that to my practice. So Lee, big love to you. Enjoy your wonderful 6 weeks. Big love with the album. Send it to me, and we'll share it with the tribe, the community. And yeah, thank you. Love. Life is magnificent.
Take care. Love to you. Yeah, take care.